Today on Gun Talk Nation, he's a competitive shooter, a gun builder, and he's going to tell you why you really do need to clean your guns. It's Dustin Sanchez from Real Avid. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Silencer Central, Armscor, Remington, HIVIZ sights, Range Ready, and 4 Patriots. All right, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. So today on Gun Talk Nation, we got Dustin Sanchez, Real Avid. Welcome in, man.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
So we've got all these fun guests coming in to see us and see our new place to film guns and gear. So we appreciate you coming down.
No, thank you. This place is awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know. Some of probably the audience knows the story, but buying an abandoned, vacant slaughterhouse and then renovating it for about a year and making it our media offices. But it turned out to be pretty neat.
Yeah, it's cool. I like how you kept some of the history here too with the pillars. Yeah, it's really cool.
But there are people who work in the industry who they just work in the industry. Mm-hmm. And then there are people who, there's a reason why I think people don't tend to leave the gun industry because, number one, great people.
Yep.
Great people. And there's a like-mindedness of people in the industry,
right,
about things beyond guns, just a like-mindedness.
Yeah.
But then there's also a lot of us, that is our hobby. Yes. We are shooters, we are hunters, we are gun nerds.
Yep.
And you're that guy.
I am that guy. Yes. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to have you on, because it's not like I have to go, what are we talking about? Well, I can list all the specs on all of our Real Avid products.
Right.
I mean, you're a user. So talk about your background. I mean, how did you get into this? And I know that, you shoot competitions and all this other stuff.
Yeah. It started out, I was doing some mixed martial arts with a guy by the name of Nathan Payne. His dad is Brian Payne and his brother is Tyler Payne, who shoots for the Army Marksmanship Unit.
Okay.
So that family they're just family of shooters. And we were doing MMA together, and his dad was like, hey, you guys should come shoot a match. So we we borrowed all of Brian Payne's gear and went shot a 3-gun match. That was my first match ever. It was like in 2010, something like that.
So were you a shooter before that?
Well, I grew up in Texas. So I feel like when I say I grew up in Texas, everybody's like, oh yeah, he grew up with a gun in his hand shooting. Mm-hmm. So that was about as far as it went. I loved guns. I had them. I would go out plinking. I'd go hunting. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't till roughly like 2010, around that time, where it was like, let's go shoot a match. And then we went, and before we shot the match, we went and trained, and we did some stuff with Brian Payne.
Okay, so you knew a little bit of what to expect.
Yes. Well, you think you do until you show up to a match, and then like the buzzer goes off, and you get done with the stage, and you're like, that did not go as planned at all.
Right.
Like everything I've done was nothing like that.
And this was 3-gun.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that was different, right? Because I have a lot of people like, should I get right into 3-gun? I'm like, I mean, I did. I think it was great. I loved it. I know a lot of people that did. But I also think starting out with one firearm is also a fantastic way to get into it.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Not expensive, not as much gear. We always say 3-gun is very gear heavy.
It is.
If you were going to start shooting a competition, certainly if you just did a pistol match,
yes,
get good at that.
Yes. So that being said, I have 2 friends right now that want to get into shooting, and they're like, what should we do? It's like, find a local USPSA, IDPA match around you. Because, they've got their pistols, and nowadays a lot of people with their everyday carry, they have that, and they're running an optic on there, and IDPA and USPSA both are great platforms that will allow you to use your everyday carry as a competition pistol, right?
Yeah, there's a class for that.
Exactly. And if you're new, you're not going in there to win. I mean, you could have the mentality, I'm going to go in there and beat everybody, but you're not going to win. Go in there, have fun, go in there, learn more about your firearm, learn more about just the principles of shooting in general, right? The fundamentals. Mm-hmm. So I started in 3-gun, and Brian Payne, phenomenal trainer, very educational. He was the chief of police in a small town in Minnesota at the time, and he taught a lot of classes on, concealed carry classes and stuff like that. So just a phenomenal guy, phenomenal trainer. I think I shot 1 or 2 locals, and then I went and shot Blue Ridge Mountain 3-gun championship.
You just jumped right in.
Well, Nathan was like, hey, I'm going. You want to go with me? I'm like, yeah. And Brian was already going, and so yeah, we jumped right in, and man, it was embarrassing. We squad up with the AMU because Tyler's shooting for the AMU.
Oh my gosh. Literally like the best shooters in the country.
I mean, that's when I first met Daniel Horner, right? And if you don't know who Daniel Horner is, I mean, he shoots for SIG now, but he is one of the best shooters in the world. I mean, by far. And I was in their squad. And well, we can just laugh because it was embarrassing.
Like, I know a few chords. It's going to be me and Eddie Van Halen and Stevie Ray Vaughan. We're going to jam.
Yep, that was it. Yeah. Right. I got done shooting a stage, and I remember Daniel looked at me. He's like, "What was the win?" And I was like, let's not even ask me what that was, bro. I was like, my third match ever within 2 months. Wow. I was just holding here, and he's like, "Okay, cool." And then he smokes the stage down. Like, he didn't miss any long range shots or anything like that. Yeah.
So, were you using your guns?
So by this time, I was. I'm the guy. Like, once I commit to something, I'm just gonna go all in. Mm-hmm. It's that whole buy once, cry once mentality. I'm just gonna do everything, and I tell a lot of people not to do that because it is expensive, and sometimes it's more expensive than it should be because you don't know everything at the time. But yeah, so I already had a Super Black Eagle 2, so. I took a Dremel to it like everybody else was back in the time and opened it up so we could load a little better. And at that time, we were still loading 4s, one at a time. Right. With your thumb. So did that. I had a guy by the name of Paul Grundhauser. He built me a rifle using a lot of JP parts. And then I think I shot that match with like a Glock 17L.
Okay.
Something.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I picked that up from somebody and I just went and had a good time.
Now, were you in the gun industry at that time?
No. So I didn't get into the gun industry for a couple of years later. And then again, that came back to the Payne family. Brian Payne, when he decided to retire from being a chief of police, he was really good friends with John Paul, the founder and owner of JP Rifles.
And JP Rifles is a company that within the industry, within people who are in the know, they know JP. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like this little hidden gem for a lot of people who are just general, like, I like guns. I shoot guns sometimes.
It is. Yeah. There's a lot of really good AR manufacturers out there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of phenomenal AR manufacturers out there. Not, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's a good number of them. Mm-hmm. JP is at that top end spectrum of that, right? And I think a lot of times when you look at buying a, let's say, $2,500 to $3,000 AR, then you lose a certain market, right? Like they're not going to ever pay that for an AR. They don't see the need in it. There's certain things that they'll never even look at or feel when they're shooting a rifle. And I think that's where JP is. If you know about JP, you know because you were looking for one specific thing.
Yeah. So where'd that take you after that?
Yeah. So Brian Payne, he retired from being chief of police. And we'd all been shooting with John Paul for a while. And so John Paul hired Brian Payne and they were looking for another guy to come in and not turn wrenches, but build ARs. Mm-hmm. And I turned wrenches previously in my life. So Brian called me one day. He's like, "Hey, you interested in working for JP?" I was like, "Yeah,
it'd be amazing.
Why wouldn't I be?" Right. So I went and did an interview and I got hired on. And just because I understood tools, I turned wrenches from the time I was like 13 till I was 29. Mm-hmm. Worked for Caterpillar for a couple of years, built some custom trucks. So it was natural for me just to sit right there and start building an AR.
So you had some natural ability as far as just a guy who likes to build and tinker.
Yeah.
Now, you were messing with guns, and I mean messing with as far as like if you start getting into competition, you're probably going to start customizing pretty quickly. But once you got into JP and that level of doing those types of AR builds, what are some of the things that you had to either unlearn or the new things you started learning where it was like, oh, this isn't a matter of like assembling an AR. What makes a great AR? What are you doing? What are some of the things where you start going, oh, wow.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me that started off right away was the specs of an AR, right? And a lot of people throw around the term mil spec.
Right.
And then I started using the term, and other people around me were using the term that there's mil spec and then there's like JP spec. Because their tolerances are a lot tighter. And when you start messing with tighter tolerances, that's where you start to see a little bit more precision and accuracy coming out of rifles or something that's going to run a lot better. So for me, it was seeing when I would go put something together, it was a lot tighter. And, when I was just buying random parts off the shelf or whatever and putting them into an AR, it wouldn't always fit. Sometimes it'd be a little tight, sometimes it'd be a little loose. So you're always messing around with this. So that was a big thing that I learned at JP was everything was just a tighter tolerance. Everything was really just kind of made to go together, which changed stuff. And now, JP does it. And at the time, they weren't announcing this or letting anybody know, but they were doing a thing called thermal. And now I can't even think of the word. They would like thermal fit the barrel to the upper receiver.
Really?
Yeah. So there's videos. I've shot some videos now for JP where it shows how to do that. So what they're doing is they're taking the upper receiver, and where the barrel actually goes in, they're making that tighter. So a barrel actually won't fit into that receiver until you heat up the receiver.
And expands.
And it expands, and then you put the barrel in there, and then it just would lock up around
Wow. That's really interesting. That's a great technique, and it makes it just super duper tight.
Yeah. Well, John Paul's whole thing was ARs back in the day when he got into this were not as accurate as bolt guns. Mm-hmm. And part of it was the barrel to the receiver fit. Like it just never was where it should be. So that was something that he started doing. And not saying that he's the one that designed that because I'm not sure where all that came from. But where I learned about it was at JP. And I think that's a separator point right there, right? Is like if you don't get that all the way in fast, you're now going to use a press to get it out because that barrel is not going to come out until you use a press. Yeah. So my first couple of days, like I was on that press a lot because I'd go to put the barrel in there, but I wouldn't put it in fast enough. Mm-hmm. Receiver would shrink down and it would be like hanging out. And I was like, ah. So it was little things like that. Learning how to do JP triggers and just the way they spec things out was different.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, I want to talk more about Real Avid. We're going to talk about gun cleaning. It's a subject people always have questions about, and you have some stories.
Yes.
The Rock Island Armory TM22, Total Metal 22. It's a semi-auto 22 rifle, and it does not feel like a toy because it is made of metal. Well, they have a promotion going on right now. You get a free 25-round magazine when you buy a TM22. All you have to do is you buy it, you send in your proof of purchase, and it's good from now through the end of the year, end of 2023. Just go over to armscor.com/promotions. Sig Sauer, a new one that came out, I guess, last year, but it's still such a dang good gun, is the P322, semi-automatic 22 pistol. And what I like about it is I kind of considered it a trainer because it has all the similar controls as you would on your regular full-size semi-auto pistol. And sometimes that's not the case with 22 pistols. Sometimes the controls are kind of wonky. Also, 21 round capacity, 21 rounds. It's optics ready with a removable rear sight plate. It also is suppressor ready. It actually includes an extra threaded barrel adapter, interchangeable trigger shoes you can customize with flat or curved trigger, fiber optic sights. So that's what I'm saying. This is a full-featured 22 pistol. Just go over to sigsauer.com to learn more. Range Ready Studios, we're putting on classes right now, and if you've never taken a shooting class, a gun class, it really is a game changer, and it's going to help you be a better shooter and give you things that you can practice on once you go back to your home range. A couple of the classes we have coming up, the First Person Defender Experience at the end of May. We also have a ladies-only handgun class, June 1st and 2nd. And then we have one that's going to be kind of interesting, the Diagnostic Pistol Instructor class, 2 days on the range with Chris Serino. That one really helps you understand what you're doing and helps you teach other people to become better shooters. You can learn more at rangereadystudios.com. Are you thinking about buying a silencer? Why are you still thinking about it? Just go do it. Silencer Central makes it easy. They will help you through the process, and they have a bunch of silencers that they're happy to sell you. 22 rimfire. One of the ones that I like lately is the Banish 46. You can put it on that 4570 gun, reduce recoil, of course, reduce the noise as well. Go over to silencercentral.com to get started, and then you'll have it just in a few months. Silencercentral.com. So Real Avid makes a lot of different. I've always enjoyed the products. I mean, even when they started coming out with the little gun tools, and you go, "Oh, this is neat." Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not. At first, it was like, well, it's not necessarily groundbreaking, but the form and function of it was just clean and had a nice design to it. But and I kind of teased it going into the break. A lot of people have questions about gun cleaning, and we joke about how little we clean our guns and all this stuff. But I mean, you hear from customers, you guys make products for that. I mean, somebody says, do I need to clean my gun? How often do I need to clean my gun? How clean does it have to be? These are all questions people have.
Every day. Yeah. I not only my marketing and do some product management, but I'm doing a lot of customer service stuff, and that's always coming through. And, yeah, it's crazy because I'm probably not the person to talk to about cleaning because I shoot a lot, and to go back and clean and everything, and it just doesn't work out for me.
You know, the one that always kind of like, I don't know, drove me a little crazy is every rifle cleaning video says, run the patches through until the patch comes out clean. And I'm like, it's kind of like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? The world will never know. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm running it and I'm running it and I'm running it and I'm running it. And I'm like, well, it's just what it's going to be.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I know this was unintentional, but this is a great plug for Real Avid. So we make a system called the Bore Max Speed Clean System.
I didn't know this, by the way.
It is a longer jag, and it's got more ribs on it, so more contact surface. It's a tighter fit. So the patches are specifically made for our jags.
Okay.
They're not your square circle patch. They are a long, skinny, rectangular patch.
Okay.
And it's usually 3 patches through there, and you're going to have a spotless barrel.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to get this. And the problem is, a lot of times I'm cleaning older guns.
Yep.
Like we've got generational guns. I'm like, yeah, I probably should clean that. And you're running it and you're running it and going. I mean, it's still not exactly clean, but I guess it's way cleaner than what it was.
No, so the rifle that I brought here, I had like 200 rounds through it because it's a brand new barrel, and it was 3 patches through there, and it was spotless. And we shot video.
What's it called again?
Bore Max Speed Clean System. So
it's a longer jag.
Yep. It's a longer jag. It's a longer patch. Even the brush is longer and it has more bristles. It is nickel plated, so you're not going to get any of that false bluing, and that's sometimes a problem.
Right.
Is that the phosphorus bronze, when you're using the solvents, actually start to break that phosphorus bronze down.
Oh, so you're actually seeing it from
you're actually seeing the phosphorus bronze. Yeah. Yeah, you see it from the jag for most of the time. So we nickel plated everything, which is not going to damage your barrel. It is way softer than the actual steel of the barrel.
Okay.
It's not going to damage it. And yeah, I'll send you some. You'll love them.
I'll have to try it. I'm gonna set aside a whole weekend to clean all the guns.
Now that being said, I will run my guns until they fail. Then I know, like, okay, this is when my group starts to open up, or this is when the rifle starts to malfunction. And I do that because I'm shooting competition all the time. I'm just shooting them all the time. I want to know what my guns can do. I know people that they'll go to the range and they'll clean them when they come home.
Oh, look, I got a buddy who didn't grow up a gun guy. He's got a few pistols now, just mainly a concealed carry kind of guy. But to his credit, he goes and shoots a few times a month at the range, and he makes time to do that to keep up his skills. But he says, and this is just his personality, every single time he goes to the range, he disassembles the gun and cleans the whole gun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? That's what you do?
I know people like that.
I have guns that I don't think I've ever cleaned them. I mean, pistols that have 5,000 rounds through them.
Yeah.
And they're still running.
For me, if I go to the range, I'm at the range to train, and I know, like, especially on a bolt gun, right? If I do a thorough cleaning through that barrel, it's not zeroed anymore until the carbon builds back up. Like, I get that not the carbon ring, but I get the brass built, or the barrel has to be dirty, right? It's like 7-8 rounds.
Yeah.
Where it's stripping the copper off of there.
How many rounds to get back to that?
It's like 7 or 8, depending on the caliber, before it's actually back to zero, because you've got to build up that copper, stripping some of the jacket off, and it's building it up into the land in the grooves. And that's actually what you're getting it back zero to.
That's an interesting point, because especially if you think about hunting rifles, people probably sight it in and then they go clean the gun because they want to be ready. I mean, I get it. You want the rifle to be accurate and also protected from rust and all that stuff. But then you're walking around with a lubed up gun that you may not, you're like, well, I don't want to shoot it because I've cleaned it.
Yep. Your point of impact has changed.
No kidding.
It's changed. It's been proven time and time again. I've seen it on my own personal rifles. I've hung out with some of the top shooters and watched them do the same thing. So typically, if I go to the range, I'm going to clean it before I go to the range, make sure everything's done. Then I go to the range and I'll shoot it. And now I know how everything functions, especially my everyday carry. The last thing I'm going to do is after I've ran my everyday carry at the range is come home, take it apart and clean it. Because then when's the next time I'm going to be able to actually test it?
That's a good point. Yeah, now you've reassembled the gun, but you haven't shot the gun, and you probably load it up and carry it, and you're going, did I just, you don't know if you screwed something up.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my principle, or my thought of training there. Now, on one of my bolt guns, it was a couple of years ago, I was like, all right, I've got like 400 rounds through it. I'm going to go shoot a match and see how it turns out. It was a local match, so I wasn't too worried. But I found out that rifle, or at least that barrel, like 425 rounds, the group opened up, and I was shooting good. I was in first place, and I ended up not in first place.
So what happened?
So it got so dirty that the group actually did open up in the barrel. So I went from shooting sub MOA to shooting like a two MOA group at 100 yards.
And so and this was a long range stuff.
Yeah, so at 1,200 yards, I wasn't hitting anything. So I cleared the Know Your Limits rack earlier in the day at like, I think we were at 900 yards. So then we come back and there's a Know Your Limits rack at 800. I'm like, I got that.
Easy money, yeah.
And I didn't hit anything.
Wow.
Like I missed everything. So then the match gets done. I go to the zero bay and I'm zeroing and it's off. I'm like, what is going on? So then went home, scrubbed my barrel. I didn't mess with anything else. I just scrubbed my barrel, went back to the range. Like I said, about 10 shots in, it was right back to where it should have been. And I was like, okay, so this rifle needs to be cleaned at 400 rounds no matter what.
Well, and competitors will say, and usually I hear it as far as like how fast to shoot, but this is another way to look at it. You want to have the wheels come off to see how where that line is. Yeah. And that's true for your gear as well.
Yep.
I have a question though, because this is an interesting experiment. So the gun got so dirty, it became less accurate. Was it just a point of impact shift where it was consistent, or it was like random?
No, it was random. Yeah. It just started shooting like if I could have put 5 rounds out of it at the same time, it would look like a shotgun. It was a big group. Yeah. So that was my first experience with that on a long range rifle. You know, on my 308 for 3-gun, I'd probably ran it. I think it started to fail around 1,700 rounds. I started to get the bolt would start slowing down and getting stuck because it was so dirty. Yeah, on an AR-10. So I learned
That's a lot of rounds,
one.
though.
It was a lot of rounds. Yeah,
that's actually pretty impressive that it held up that long.
And was that JP?
Yeah,
yeah. I'm not going to plug them, but I'm going to plug them.
But it was good.
Yeah, no, it was just the way that rifle was set up, you know. And so I like to take all my guns to where they fell. You know, the wheels fall off. Then I'm like, okay, now we can back it off. Now I know what this rifle or pistol or shotgun can actually handle. That rifle, I knew if I was going to go shoot a local match or anything like that, depending on the round count, I needed to clean it around 300 rounds.
Yeah.
But, that being said, a lot of the people out there are never going to hit that round count.
Right.
People talk to me and, they'll hear that I shoot a barrel out. They're like, you shot a barrel out? I'm like, yeah. How many rounds was that? Well, 6 Creedmoor is like 1,300 to 1,500 rounds. It's not a whole lot in the competition sense.
So you're tracking rounds then?
I keep track. I know. I like the rifle that's here right now. I have 223 shots, 223 rounds through it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through that barrel or through the whole gun?
Just through the barrel. I only keep track of the barrel itself because that's what I need to know where I'm at.
Yeah.
But that's how many rounds it has through it. The action.
223.
What?
223.
Oh yeah,
223.
That's true. Yeah, look at that. The action itself is probably sitting around 15. I'd have to look at the numbers, but it's sitting around 1,500 or something like that on that particular action.
Well, that's a perfect segue. So after the break, we're going to talk about gun builds because that's another side of what Real Avid does.
Yes.
If you're going to use a shotgun for home defense or maybe even turkeys, you need something that's going to be accurate because you do have to aim the shotgun to hit your target. And may I suggest upgrading the sights on that shotgun? HIVIZ tactical sights for shotguns, rifles, and handguns, but the ones that put on the shotgun are stone simple to put on. So you have a lot of options, a lot of colors, but it's going to help you have a more precise aiming point. Go to HIVIZsights.com to learn more. Peter's paper hulls are back with new traditional paper hull shot shells. Tuned for the modern trap, skeet, and sporting clay shooter, the paper hull reduces felt recoil for a more enjoyable day at the range. And they smell so good when you shoot them, those paper hulls. Yeah, they're making them new. So go over to Remington.com to find them. They've got them in 12 gauge, 7.5 shot, 8 shot, A couple different flavors and configurations. But Peter's paper hulls are back. I think that's very cool. Remington.com. Craig didn't know his wife and kids were going to die during Hurricane Ida, but his gas generator leaked carbon monoxide into his house. The government calls it a known safety threat because it poisons thousands of Americans every year. But there's a new generation of portable, safe, silent, and 100% fume-free solar generators. Also, I'm just going to throw in there, you don't need the gas and having to go find gas during a hurricane. The Patriot Power Generator is quiet as a laptop, powerful enough for your fridge. Get 10% off when you make your first purchase at 4patriots.com using code GTN. Get the Patriot Power Generator from 4patriots.com today. New from Ruger, they've expanded their line of Wrangler single-action revolvers. Now they've got the Super Wrangler. Attractive price combined with affordability of rimfire ammunition makes this revolver ideal for learning to shoot, introducing friends or family to the sport, or just having fun shooting single actions. One of the things they did with this is they made it a little bit longer barrel. It's a 5.5-inch barrel, and they made it a little bit heavier. Instead of it being an aluminum frame, it's a steel frame, so it adds a little weight to the gun. And you have 2 cylinders. You have a 22 LR and a 22 Magnum cylinder. Lets you do a few more things with this Super Wrangler over at Ruger.com. So one of the things we've been filming with you today for Guns and Gear is, I'm going to mess up the name. It's a new Vice, not Vice.
No, it's a
Workstation.
So it depends, right? Because the industry has had these benchtop vices, is what they'll call them, and it sits on the bench, and that's, we call them a vice. From any other world, we look at a vice as something that mounts to the table, and we can do a lot of work.
You can really put a lot of pressure on it. This is something that sits on top of, and we say a workbench, but it could sit on top of a kitchen table.
What's it called? It's our Master Gun Workstation.
Master Gun Workstation. It's really super cool. Probably too much for us to try to explain on a podcast, but kind of wanted to talk about gun builds because that's another side of this. And obviously we're doing the Build Box show. What are you seeing? What are you hearing right now with gun builds? Because it seems like it's more popular than it's ever been.
It is. Yeah. And every time some kind of political shift happens, it just makes it go crazy again. Right.
Yeah.
So right now, what we're seeing is a lot of guys are starting to move into they want to do a lot more night shooting, and they're wanting to build a lot more SBRs. There was the whole pistol thing going on, but with the ATF ruling, that's kind of changed it. But a lot of guys are going shorter now. You're seeing a lot more shorter ARs coming out, or a lot more being built. Different types of.
So they're actually SBRs then.
A lot of guys are SBRing them. It's a lot. I think once you get past the tax stamp, it's pretty easy. And if you're not a guy that travels out of the state, once you're approved in your state, you can use that everywhere. Some competition guys, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to let the state know that you're going to be there. And then if you're driving, you have to let every state know you're going to be there.
It's actually more complicated to travel with an SBR, short barrel rifle, than it is a silencer.
It is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. I have to let everybody know I'm coming in with the SBR.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. But, but you were seeing a big shift going there, which was cool because you're seeing a lot of guys building different specs on their ARs, right? So 10-inch barrel, 12-inch barrel, and then you're seeing 223, 300 blackout. You're also seeing a big shift in PCC right now with the AR, so that's a pistol caliber carbine.
Right.
And you're seeing a big shift in that with the AR platform coming out, so.
You've built who knows how many guns. Is there a particular one lately that you just kind of like, or a certain style or configuration for you personally that you, or is there one on your mind that you're thinking, maybe I'd want to build something like that?
Well, it's funny because I'm a huge AR guy. I built rifles for JP Rifles for I don't know how many years. Big into it. But right now, I'm looking at some AKs.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I think I've always had this thing against them, and right now I'm like, I just want to build like a really cool AK, something that I could have fun with. And for all the AK guys, I know like they're not gonna like this. It's just for looks because I know the accuracy is not gonna be there that I have in my ARs. But I just want something super cool.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens a lot of times if we get into it as gun people, you have every flavor under the sun.
Yep.
And then you're looking for the next thing. And it's kind of like, well, why do you want or need this or that? Like, well, I'm just looking for the next thing because the guns are, it's your hobby.
Yeah.
And if you've got every flavor of AR, you go, what's something else I can mess with?
Yeah. You know, I've been extremely blessed since I got into this, into shooting, for one, as a hobby, and then it turned into more of my career. So my career and hobby came together. I've been extremely blessed to meet some fantastic people, hang out with some really cool manufacturers and get some cool stuff, right? So, I've got some 2011s. I've got, I've got the striker fires. I've got some really cool bolt guns, really cool shotguns, and some really cool ARs. So I think, like, for me right now, it's like I want to have a cool AK, but I'll go back. I'll build more ARs. I mean, I've got some things in mind that I want to build and have fun with. But I think it's just like ice cream, right? I go in one day and I just want pure vanilla, and the next day I'm gonna go in, I want like cookies and cream or something like that.
Well, what's funny is the gun that you brought, because you're going to go shoot a match after this, right?
Yeah, I leave for Texas first at like 6 a.m.
So we're spending a lot of time talking about AR builds and now even an AK build.
Yeah.
But describe the gun that you brought.
So it is a pretty much a JP Rifles Ilmar 19 bolt gun. So it's a JP makes a chassis called the APAC chassis. Collapsible.
I was noticing that. Very cool.
Yeah, collapsible stock. A lot of the ergonomics were built off of the AR platform. And then JP went ahead and used their same style handguard to be put on there. So it's just really cool. It's that guy, and then it's got ultimatum action, proof research barrel, and then just a 4.5 to 27 optic on top. And then I got one of the guys at Real Avid. I had him do a Cerakote job on it for me.
Yeah.
And I have another one being built that's Bagara sent me a 22. I'm gonna drop it in the same chassis.
Oh, cool!
So that my
like
trainer will be identical to my competition rifle.
And what's this rifle chambered in?
This one that's here is a 6 Creedmoor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what most people are using for the PRS type stuff?
I think it depends on. So there's PRS, Precision Rifle Series, and there's the National Rifle League, which is NRL Hunter Series.
Right.
And then you have Competition Dynamics, and they do more safari style matches. So I think it really depends on what you're shooting. The safari matches, you're hiking to all your stages or rucking with all your gear on you for the day. PRS is the best way for me to explain it, which somebody may get offended, but it is like USPSA for long range shooters. You're in a squad and you're moving from stage to stage to stage together.
Familiar format.
Yep.
But it's a game.
It is a game. And then NRL is it's a blind stage and you go up there. So I think NRL has rules. They have a weight limit on there. They have 2 different divisions, like a factory division and the non-factory, and you have to make power factor. So there you can only run a 6.5 Creedmoor. Now this is if you want points. If you don't want points, you can just shoot.
Right.
Like 3-gun, USPSA, IDPL. If you don't care about points and you just want to shoot, they'll let you shoot whatever you have as long as it's safe. So any of these matches you can go shoot. Now PRS is where you're gonna get into like 6 Dasher, 6 GT, but these are guys that are hand loading stuff.
Right.
A lot of times with me doing video for Real Avid, doing video for JP, things like that, I want to be able to, I can't relate to some guys that can't reload.
Sure.
Right? So I want to be able to talk to them about, hey, you can go buy this ammunition off the shelf, go out and compete and have a good time. Or you can go out and just learn how to shoot and have a good time. You don't have to invest in the whole reloading and all of that stuff if you're not the guy that has the time for that.
I think that when you're trying to get good at something, get better at something, acquire a skill and master it, giving yourself, it's like when people run, they sign up for a marathon and they go, okay, now I have something to train for. So if somebody says, well, I just want to become a better rifle shooter, maybe mostly it's not about winning matches. That's not their thing, their hobby just yet. But maybe it's, I want to be really good for doing hunting, Western hunting, safari hunting, whatever it may be. Which one of those do you think would be the one they should sign up for or take a look at?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Competition Dynamics and their safari style matches. So they've got Steel Safari, which is individual. Then they have Team Safari, which is a team match. I like those because you actually are going to put in 3 to 4 miles that day walking. You're going to shoot 8 to 12 stages. They're blind stages. So when you walk up, your RO is going to tell you like, hey, here's where your targets lie within these 2 areas, right? So you have a right marker.
Sector.
Yeah. And so you have to range, or first you have to find your targets, range your targets, then engage your targets, and you're on the clock. I feel like that's more realistic for a guy that's going to go hunting, right? Because you don't know where the animal's going to be. Sometimes you're just looking, you see it, then you range it, and you're like, oh, I have to get into a solid shooting position to engage this animal. And depending on what's going on around you, that animal might start moving on you.
Sure.
So I find that the safari matches are probably going to be a little bit more realistic for you. Now, NRL Hunter Series is going to be a blind stage, so that's back on the clock. You're just not rocking with all your gear on you. So I would say those two are probably where I'd start.
Yeah.
But I think, even right now, let's say you don't have a whole lot of money because shooting a 6 Creedmoor, a 308, 6.5 Creedmoor is pretty expensive.
Right.
You can go pick up a decent 22 for like $600. Ammo's cheap. There's a lot of PRS and NRL Hunter Series matches out there that are just 22 based.
Which I think is super cool.
And you can go train. And it's positional stuff. And it's very educational. I've been working with some local hunters in Minnesota right now that are wanting to improve their hunting game. And they're going to the range and we're just doing stuff with a 22.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can probably do 90% of everything you're going to be doing otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, we were playing around with that Savage today. That thing's like 7.5 pounds for a bolt gun. You can get a 22 that weighs that. The stocks can be pretty similar to each other, and you can figure out how you like to run that configuration. You can put the same optics on there, right? So then once you get that configuration done, go out and do live fire for half the price, if it's not even less than that, and have a good time and be able to educate yourself on how you're going to shoot even better with positional type shooting.
Kind of making me want to get out there and get some trigger time. Dustin, thanks for being on with us, man.
Hey, no, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is cool. Always good to talk to gun guys doing gun stuff. If you want to know more, what's the website for Real Avid?
It's realavid.com.
That's a pretty good domain for that.
Really
brand.
fast and easy. Yeah.
All right. That's it for us. We'll see you guys next time on Gun Talk Nation. To see all of Gun Talk's content, go to guntalk.com, guntalktv.com, or sign up for the Gun Talk newsletter.